I'd like to call this meeting, council work session on August 27th, 2018 at the beautiful Batesburg-Leesville Town Hall Complex to order. If I could, Mr. Simpkins, if you would do an invocation for us, please. Yes. Thank you.
Let us bow for a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come now, God, with hearts filled with thanksgiving, thanking you, O God, for all the blessings that you bestowed upon this council, Lord God, and staff, administration, Father, and all the citizens of this great community. Lord, we ask that you come into our midst this evening, God, and be for us everything that we need you to be. Bind us together in Christian love, God. Place us on one accord, Lord God, that we might take care of the business of our community for the benefit of our citizens. These blessings in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Simpkins is a first. Ms. Hallman is a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? The agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on to item 5, discussion topics. We have 2 topics for this evening's work session. Topic A is a training and discussion regarding the municipal auditing process by Dooley and Company. And discussion topic B is a presentation and discussion regarding council staff water project ideas. So if I'll turn it over to you, Town Manager, Mr. Luckadoo, to please introduce our visitor from Dooley and Company.
All right. Tonight we are blessed to have in our presence Miss Amy Ely. Okay. From Dooley and Company, who has Dooley and Company's been long-standing auditors of the town. We really enjoy the service that they provide us. They come in and do a wonderful job. I know that when we had the big turnover on council, there were new members interested in. It was right about that time that the audit came back in, and it was, what are we looking at? What we don't understand what we even need to look at as part of this process.
Almost forgot too.
So it was, hey, can we bring the auditors in and let's have them discuss procedurally what they do when they come in to audit the town? What are the things you should know regarding the audit? And then run through this nice packet of many pages of information that you receive at the end that I have to be honest, she's got to explain a lot of it to me on an annual basis. So she's going to run through the key points that you'll need to look through in that audit when that time comes. So, Amy?
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Shed a little bit of light on it.
I'm putting the podium right here, you stand right here if you want to walk. That's up to you.
This is fine.
Okay.
This is fine. If you don't mind, just kind of flipping some pages, it'll be easier to explain with something for y'all to look at. Basically, what we are the external auditors, and we come in and check your books to make sure everything looks okay every year. Now, if you'll flip a few pages to the report kind of summarizes the things that we do, and I'll point some of those out. But basically, let me go back right, to the actual, the one that has our letterhead on
Let me zoom this out a little bit too.
This is our report, and this is tells you basically everything that we do. But basically, it says that we audit your financial statements, and in that first paragraph, it basically says for 17 the statements that we've audited, and then we have to point out that even though we've audited it, that management does take responsibility for the report. And that's what that second paragraph says. But if you look at the auditor's responsibility, that'll give you kind of an expression of what we do. And we express an opinion on the financial statements based on all of our findings. And we have to follow certain guidelines based on the governmental auditing standards. And the government auditing standards basically gives us a lot of checklists and a lot of questions that we have to go and ask Ms. Judy and Ted, everybody that we have to go around and ask. And when you look at your internal controls to make sure that the same person that writes a check doesn't reconcile the bank account, the same person that makes deposits doesn't reconcile the bank account. Stuff like that is kind of your internal control procedure that we look at. And that's basically to make sure that the procedures are in place to make sure that fraud is harder to happen. It can't totally avoid it, but at least it makes that difficult to happen. So there's those checks and balances in place. And basically what we do during the audit is look at just a sample of all the transactions during the year. We can't look at everything, but we do look at a good sample, and we have a program that picks a sample, and we go through some different things for the audit. If you look at the financial statements, I can kind of point out maybe some procedures that we would do. So if you'll go down page 10. Basically what page 10 is a summary of everything that the town and the public works. It's everything, that top section is the assets, so that's everything that the town owns. And the way we check that is, we want to make sure how much cash you have, so we'll verify that with the bank. We'll check your bank reconciliations, make sure all that ties. We'll pull some sample of some checks and deposits to make sure all those tie to your records. Your receivables are the money that you got after June, but it actually belongs in the June year. So you may have had some money owed to you from the state that was for June. We'll pull that back, and that's a receivable. All your capital assets are listed there, and those are and we check those. Ms. Judy keeps a record of all those, and we verify any new purchases that are made through the year. And those are all depreciated, which means that a little bit of it's written off for just general decline in the value of it over the years. Your liabilities are listed there. That's what you owe other people. And your capital leases and your bonds are also listed there. The main thing you should take from this is you got a good cash balance. That's important to note there. You do have the amount of your non-current liabilities. I will point out this net pension liability right here. That's a majority of your liabilities right there. Now, that's almost $5 million when you look at it for the town as a whole. Basically what that is if the amount that you need to have set aside to pay retirement. Now the town doesn't have to have that on hand right now, but that's something new that's been added recently. And a lot of towns and school districts, all governments have to have that on there.
So when you say that's been added, is that coming from Washington, D.C., or is that coming, it is?
Yeah, it's a government standard that we've had to add that to every town, every school district, anybody that has a retirement plan that they're responsible for.
Or
then
federal.
That's the amount that you have to come up with to be able to fully fund that retirement.
Okay.
No, they aren't going to come ask for that. But
Basically, the state was holding everybody's retirement liabilities on their books, and they didn't want to
They
show
didn't want
that
it, so they
liability.
split it out.
So they gave each individual entity back that liability
They
to get it
split
off
it
their
out.
books.
So, a lot of people didn't like that, but the government sets the standards and we can't do much about it. So it makes some people, it does reflect negatively on your financial statements, but, bond attorneys and people that are doing bonds understand that, and they aren't gonna hold that as a liability that they'll have to watch out for.
Okay.
So the net position at the bottom is also a good indicator of how you're doing. But again, with that pension liability thrown in there, we prefer to look at a different total for that. If you go to page 12. This is more in line with how for governmental statements, you have to present the balance sheet in two ways. One has all your liabilities in it and all your bonds. This has basically your ins and outs of daily activity and what's left. And we like to use fund balance as a good indicator of how the town is doing. And on here, that's a little over 1.5 million. So that to me tells me that this town is in good financial shape. You want to have a fund balance. We like to say at least enough to pay 3 months' expenses. Now, each town could set its own. Y'all could set.
So by fund balances, you're talking about the funds that we're familiar with. I mean, the funds that we have, not individual bank accounts.
More or less a reserve.
Right,
A
it's
reserve
basically
balance.
reserve. So very basic what that is the cash that you have less what you owe people, like your payroll taxes and your bills for the next month. What you have left is your fund balance, and that's a reserve is a good term for that.
Now you're talking overall.
That's overall.
Now
That's for the
we've
general
broken
fund.
it down.
Right,
General
that's-
fund
so I
versus
guess that's my-
utility
Right,
fund.
this is
Are we looking
general
at
fund.
each? This would be the.
This is just the general fund.
Okay.
The utility fund has its own statement. They're shown separately.
Okay. But you're looking at each one of those. Correct.
So this one shows just the town. Now let's see, there's on page 15 shows the utility. And because the utilities are shown different than the town because the utilities are more of a business. Where it's intended, in general, you can make a profit, but it shows basically the same thing. And on here, your net position, which is what it's called on here, is almost a little over 9 million. But what you have to consider in that also includes, the assets that you have, like the 10 million in infrastructure and all that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And for the town and the utility, we give detail on the income and all the expenses. That's the utilities. Shows all your collections and all your expenses broken out by type there. And that net position again is shown. So basically the net position, your cash or and what are your revenues for the utilities in the town is basically the big items that I think y'all should look at to make sure you're in line. Certainly making sure your expenses are in line with your budget. And we look at that when we're doing the audit and make sure that you're in line with your budget. Nothing's way over budget. That's a good indicator of the health of the town. Might be easier if I just answer some specific questions. If you want to have.
Any specific questions on that? You know, there's an interesting documentary on Netflix about a little town in Colorado, and perhaps you're familiar with it, where over the course of, I don't know, 30 years or something, you know, someone had kind of skimmed off $50-some million. And so if Judy has, you know, has an account in the Cayman Islands, what would be a way that, you know, in your process, how do you identify things like that? I mean, what would tip you off? What would tip us off to then, you know, let's say it's one of us kind of sees something odd.
A lot of times, I'll tell you the way that usually happens when somebody does that for such a long period of time is it becomes the norm. Like a lot of times we've seen, okay, you've got a travel account that's a $5,000 budget. You know, if nothing is odd, you know, if it doesn't dramatically increase and it stays above 5,000, y'all probably aren't going to notice, and that will be a way that, you know, some people skim money off. And I've seen that happen in some other school districts and things like that. The way we usually pick it up, we scan, we get a printout of the check register. We'll skim the whole thing, not saying that we're going to look at every transaction, but we will skim it, look for things that look odd. Occasionally we'll check with vendors to make sure they're legitimate vendors. We will just kind of, when we do a random sample as well, and that's very random. It could pick up something that's out of the ordinary or just a random transaction. Those are a random sample and the analysis, analytical procedures, and the checking vendors and things like that would be the way that we would pick up on that.
In your analysis, if you have, say, a line item that is way over or even under budget, does that raise a red flag?
Right, we look at it both ways. If it's way under, we'll question, hey, were y'all planning on an expense that didn't happen? If it's way over, I want an explanation of why is it way over, and did you have council approval to go way over? Because technically there should be something in the minutes that explains why you've gone over a line item. And, you know, council has the authority to do amendments so that, you know, you can bring things in line.
Now, would that be identified when you report to council? Would that be brought up?
If we do another report, another filing specifically to, that's not a part of this report, but if we find something that we think council needs to be aware of, we put it in that report, and that will be pointed out to you in a separate report that wouldn't be a public report. It would be to council, not something that we think that materially misstates the financial statement, but just something that, hey, are you aware of that?
Well, now to council is a public report.
I mean, it wouldn't, right, but it wouldn't be something I would stand up here and tell everybody in the town about.
Well, how would you inform council?
With a letter to council. And you could choose to release that information to whoever you chose to.
I appreciate you coming to us before the reporters. No offense, Carol, but I do. I enjoy that chain of command. Thank you very much.
I think most of the time we're generally able to, anytime there's a big overage, a lot of times it's grant funds or a grant project that was from the preceding year that we don't get the reimbursement check until the current year, so it's applied to that, or it's a purchase of a liquid lime chemical feed system, and we'll just have to show her the minutes where we came to council and approved that. And once we show her the minutes,
Right. I don't think
she's not going to report that because she's got the documentation that she
I
needs
wouldn't
to
report
do.
it. If they give adequate explanation, it wouldn't be something that I would put in that report, because it was something, and I think there's a line item in that report that we discussed items with employees and found that it was, you know, we're given adequate explanation. So unless it was something that we couldn't come to an agreement on, then it would be listed in
And so you're looking at each, any checking account, any account, period. Savings
We look at
account.
grant funds, we look at savings
Fund,
accounts.
okay.
We look at the victim's advocate account. We look at court, police
Mm-hmm.
fines. We look at the impact fees. We look at all of them.
Okay. And so for council on just a monthly basis, looking at those financials, looking at those checks written in our financial statements that come out is probably a great idea.
Right. That, the financials that you're given on a monthly basis are part of your internal control system. So that's your you take responsibility to look at that, and if something stands out, then that's when you need to raise the question, and that's holding, everybody accountable.
And is there any specific format that you would recommend or that you guys recommend to town councils or to staff on what they should show or how they should communicate that to council as far as what that document should look like? Is there any method that's easier, more palatable than another? Here's the detail, here's a summary. Any recommendations? Do you make recommendations like that?
You're talking about something in addition to
Yeah,
what we already
well,
get,
something
right?
in addition to what we already get on a monthly basis. I don't know if you guys do things like that, if you make recommendations.
It kind of depends on what council wants and what council is, I think the detail that you get, which I think is the budget versus actual report, I think that's a good tool because you can look at it line item by line item. I think if it was in a summary form, I don't think that you would have enough knowledge to
information.
know.
Okay.
So I think it's a good format that you're getting.
Okay, good.
It's a lot to look through, but I think it's
Right.
the best.
Yes.
And that's a good thing, I think, for the department heads to have as well, and they can give you feedback, maybe in their report that they give, that we've looked at it and it looks, they can give their input at that point. Because if they have a line item that's way over halfway through the year, you're expected to be at 50% and it's already at 100, they might want to point that out. Say, this is why we've already purchased this piece of equipment that we were planning for, so there won't be any more. They should have an explanation.
And do you look at ordinances on procurement, anything like that? Do you make recommendations on how those things should be done or handled? Or is that kind of outside your purview?
We look and see what you should be submitting bids on and making sure that you are submitting bids on what you should be. That's a good thing to look at. You may want to make sure that that policy is what you intend it to be. And that might be something that your attorney could make sure that that's what you intend it to be.
Any other questions? Gary? Anything else that you can think of?
One other come to my mind. What about purchase or sale of assets? How in depth do you all get into first the authorization of council's approval? I think you mentioned that earlier. You all asked for that documentation.
Right, when something like a large asset or something is
Right.
purchased.
Maybe capital group.
Right, capital purchases, those are usually approved in the minutes, but there's some items that I know are just in the budget and y'all already have, a line item there for that might not be in the budget because, might not be in a specific council meeting because you've already given authority to spend a certain amount. So on those items, as long as it's within the budget, we wouldn't necessarily ask for something additional to support that. We look at all the invoices for everything that is purchased, any large items that are purchased. We do look at all the invoices for those, every one of them, to make sure we even go through repairs and maintenance to make sure that there's nothing there that should be considered an asset.
And what if you run across a situation where there is no documentation that council approved it? Then how do you all handle that?
As long as it's within the budget, we're okay with it. I don't know that we've run into a situation where council has not approved a large budget purchase that was that was outside the budget. I don't know that we've run into a situation.
Of a purchase that
Of a purchase that was,
not-
it would have to be over the budget. You know, like if you had $50,000 to spend on equipment, if you were within that budget, it's not necessarily something that we'd expect to see in the council minutes. But now if you bought $75,000 worth of equipment, I would expect to see something in the minutes that would support the
Council
additional
approving
purchase. Right.
$25,000 more dollars.
Additional 25, okay. And what about the source of those funds? Do you all address where those funds are coming from if they were not in the original budget?
Right, I believe that the budget stays the same, it's just taken from another source, so we would have to see if it was taken from one line item and moved to another line item. If it's just additional funds that y'all have approved, then, you know, those are usually come from your fund balance. If they're just additional funds that you've approved outside the normal budget, you can choose to do either way. You can choose to move it from another line item, or just say, like, if you need to purchase a police car, we didn't have it in the budget, but we need one, and there's an additional, you know, 40,000 or whatever that's been approved.
Well, like we have ordinances that prevent the transfer of funds from
One fund to another.
one fund to another, right? Now, how would you all know that, be familiar with those ordinances?
Long-term relationship,
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah.
So otherwise you all have no knowledge of whether it would be legal to move those funds for that purpose.
Teacher said we don't check behind you to make sure it's legal in an ordinance. We're assuming that you do what was right when you moved it.
Assumptions. Well, you know what they do sometimes.
So I would think y'all wouldn't move it if it wasn't
Legal.
okay. Yeah.
I see.
Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to impart to us?
When do y'all get started this year?
We need to get started.
No, but I'll call you in a couple of days.
Yeah, it'll work something out. But, if you do happen to think of any questions, they've got my number and my email. So I'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may come.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One last thing.
Yep.
So what we should look for monthly, the report we get from administration, is the use of funds, whether they were approved or not, and the balances in those accounts, whether they're over or under budget,
Right. So-
and as that goes through the year.
Right, so at a certain point of the year, you should expect a certain percentage to be used.
Right.
Right.
Make sure that percentage is in line. If it's not, maybe it's something you probably want to question.
Ask you a question. Right. Okay.
And that's in the monthly revenue and expense report that we send out with the percentages
Right.
as well as the.
And don't just do that with the expenses, look at the revenue too. If your revenue's not where you want it to be, make
Right.
sure,
Okay.
bring that up as well.
Taxes don't look good until January.
That's right, don't judge those until
Yeah.
January.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Amy.
I think
Hang out
this,
for water discussion. if you
at
want
this
to.
time, let's take about a 5-minute break if we can. Here we go. All right, let's rock and roll. Next item on the agenda is item B, discussion topic, presentation and discussion regarding council staff water project ideas. And I believe we have a presentation by our town manager, Ted Luckadoo. Ted, if you would please.
I did email presentation. A couple things have changed, so just to note that from the beginning, I tried to make sure in the email I told you there would probably be a couple things that moved around or a couple things that changed. Just really wanted to get the bulk of this in your hand for review prior to the work session so you would have an idea coming in. As you'll recall, a couple months ago, council was asked to submit ideas, any and all ideas that they had regarding our water project. Let's go back and kind of look around once again, see what we got. So tonight, got a couple goals. Goal number one, let's go through what we know and what are the unknowns to these projects that we have on here tonight that have been submitted by council members and a couple that we as a staff felt like would be worth a look and your consideration as well. And secondly is we do hope to attempt to narrow the focus down, not on a particular number of projects based on tonight, what we have on here, but narrow it down to the ones that we know we really like and would like to pursue further and explore further. There's a possibility that we could have to RFP for some engineering help to fill in those blanks and those unknowns that we don't know so that we can have a much clearer picture moving forward. So a couple goals for tonight, just putting those out there before we start. You have been given 2 papers in front of you. One of them is for 3 full partial, that makes a lot of sense. For 3 full purchase options and 3 partial purchase options. There are some other projects that are more unique in their form that aren't lumped all within the same category that we couldn't really figure out how to put these on a piece of paper as more of a side-by-side. But with regards to the full capacity and wholesale purchase and the partial purchase, we tried to put them out to where you can see everything on one piece of paper side-by-side. Tonight, again, talking full purchase and partial purchase options that are out there. We're going to look at some potential new raw water sources, options that are there, and improvements to existing reservoir and current water plant options. So within the capacity and wholesale full purchase, the ideas that we got from council were to purchase all of our water from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority, to purchase all of our water from Joint Municipal Water and Sewer Commission, potentially, or we also received an idea to purchase all of our water from the city of Newberry. So let's start with Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority. And again, we are focused right now solely on full purchase of water from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority. So we have met with Saluda County General Manager Jason Fell and their engineer for their product, for their plant, to discuss what would it mean to us to purchase 2 million gallons a day of water from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority. I want to preface real quick, numbers that you see in here tonight are estimates unless I tell you otherwise, okay? These are ballpark estimates based to the best of our ability. Okay. Anything from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority or Joint Municipal are not final numbers. They are simply discussion point numbers that have been provided by them, and they are not set in stone. They have the ability to go down or to go up. So with further looking in detail, okay? So project overview. We would have to purchase 2 million gallons of capacity up front into that water plant. The town would dissolve its water treatment operations. Key point to keep in mind is we would need to maintain a couple staff members to continue to monitor our system, the distribution portion of it, and to continue sampling our system.
Ted, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Where are we on these sheets?
Okay, so if you look right up here, this is the full purchase
Full
option.
purchase and partial purchase.
You've got the Joint Municipal, Saluda County Water and Sewer, and then Newberry.
Yeah.
So, we would purchase water at a wholesale rate at a cost per 1,000 gallons, and treated water line would have to be installed to town from their water treatment plant. Project scope of work, again, just like whether it was the raw water or a treated water line, all along we've been engineering a 16-inch water line that would come from that area back to town. So a 16-inch treated water line is installed from their new water treatment plant along Holly Ferry Road to Summerlin Avenue, coming back to B&L to our current water treatment plant. Saluda County Water and Sewer has offered to us to fund 100% of construction costs on any portion of the line work that is located within Saluda County. That would be about 7.1 miles of the roughly 11.9 or so. They told us that they were open to the idea of funding 100% of that line construction. B&L would fund 100% of the cost of the lines in Lexington County. They would reimburse us for any engineering, permitting, and easement costs for the portions of lines in Saluda County. Now, one of the questions had already come up today: what is the cost of the engineering for the line that's in Saluda County? I do not have the answer to that, and we will try to get the answer to that. But when we engineered with it, when AECOM engineered the line, they didn't engineer it in a Saluda County.
What was the total of the whole thing that was paid out for that? So it was 2.2 million. So it's not going to be more than that, right?
No, and 2.2 million
that
was
was
even
the water
that was your
plant.
raw water intake.
Okay.
and
So
booster pump
1
station.
point something. It's not going to be more than. I mean, I'm just looking for rough ranges
If you're
here.
looking for a ballpark million,
Probably 800,000.
$800,000
Okay.
million dollars
That
for
would be the
the
total engineering to this point for the line.
Okay,
for the line
perfect.
work.
Go, yeah.
So we'd be looking. They have offered to reimburse B&L for for those costs in Saluda County. They are also proposing to construct a secondary line that is from the traffic circle down Summerlin Highway to Holly Ferry, which is where we were going to intersect with the master meter for our water line. And their proposal is that by having the secondary line, if anything ever happens on Holly Ferry Road with that line, they could cut a valve and cut the line from the traffic circle. I don't know if that would be from the beginning or if that's something they intend to do later on down the road. That would be something we have to further discuss. But more or less, they were talking about that for redundancy in the future. And we would pay no capacity. A lot of times when you go to purchase and you got to construct lines, there's a capacity cost into a water line. They're stating no capacity cost into the water line. You just pay 100% of Lexington County portion. We'll pay 100% of Saluda County. If we purchased all of our water from them, there would be no capacity in any line work. Talk about some pros. And these are pros and cons, just to tell you, that we see. It doesn't mean that they're pros or cons to you. These are just things that we've thought about and do see as pros and cons. Obviously, pros, no cost on 7.1 miles of water line that's in Saluda County. That can provide us substantial savings. Reimbursement cost already paid for the Saluda County engineering and permitting and design. There will be the capability to purchase additional capital in the future from them. As the town grows, if we need more water, we can go and get more water from them. The water line is already engineered and permitted, so when we talk about how quickly can construction begin, because this line's engineered and designed, we don't have to wait for that process to take shape.
Define quickly. From a handshake today, what's quickly? 3 months, 6 months?
I think we did 12 to 15, was it 12 to 15 months on there? I know this is one of the things we put on.
12 to 15.
12 to 15 months.
Thank you.
That's your total construction time frame. From what?
No, actually, we were down to just bid and awarding the project, more or less. They're
So we take
90 to 120 days bidding and awarding the project.
So 3 months to bid an award. But I mean, just saying, shook the hands today. When what point would we go out to bid? What point what's that timeline?
Tim would follow back up with AECom, make sure there's no re-permitting we need to do due to
We'd have
time.
to update the DHEC construction permit and just make sure all the DOT encroachment permits are
So
valid.
3 months
But
is.
your
Just be
general
a- just be a
bidding and
renewal
award is
letter,
90 to 120
probably.
days.
DHEC maybe, and there's some other permits.
So probably 3 months of prep-ish.
Yeah, 90 to 100 days. That would be 30 days of advertising and bidding.
Okay, so 3 to 5 months of prep. Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to get an idea, expectation.
And
Thank
if you
you.
don't want to create too much of an expectation, say 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Just,
Yeah. Right.
Just play on the safe side of
Okay.
the time frame. There's more recovery and less loss of funds spent toward the overall project. I think everybody knows how much we have into this project and has been spent. Certainly, if you move forward, we do recover a lot of those costs with our
Yes.
USDA loan and funding.
Estimated recovery percent.
1.5.
Now, say that again.
So more
Estimated
recovery
how
and less
much
loss of funds. So we've
funds
spent
already
$2 million
Right.
on this project. If we move forward with this project, one of the pros is we don't lose $2 million. Will there be some loss? Yes, because you go back to the original joint agreement with a plant and all that. Some of that will still be lost, but we would be looking at recovery of 1 to 1.5 million would be the range I would put on recovery of funds that are actually applied towards this project of the $2 million we've spent.
We'll recoup that, but what did you say about the USDA loan?
So we've spent that money cash out of our
Right.
pocket to get it done. When we go to get the loans from USDA Rural Development, those loans are built with engineering costs and everything, so we can actually get those funds back and put them back into the bank account. We can recover those funds we've spent on the front end. Or if council wanted to, we could leave it off the loan amount, the amount of money given
Okay,
to
so
lower the debt
that's the,
service.
okay, great.
So you'll have
It's not a
that
grant. Okay,
You'll have
thank
that
you.
option.
Got it.
And obviously, with this project, debt service would be much less than just bringing raw water back, $13 million project. So your debt service would be lower with this project. Cons to the project, things to think about. We do become completely reliant upon the Water and Sewer Authority, and we don't have a seat at the table. So certainly,
seat.
we don't have a seat on the Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority Board. I would even say as a part of any negotiations, my opinion, let's ask them for 1 or 2 seats. And again, that's just something I'm throwing out. I don't know the capabilities. I don't know if they would do it, but it's something we could talk about doing.
Estimated savings on our ability to produce water that we're spending now by partnering with Saluda County.
Well, this would be a full purchase of water. This
I
would
mean,
not
in
be.
terms of maintaining your own system that we're doing now.
We estimate
What
that
cost
to
would
about
go what?
$420,000 a year. That's the operation, that's the water treatment production cost for staff reduction,
Oh, right.
decommissioning the water plant, pump stations.
Right.
Right, so if you look right here, it says Batesburg-Leesville existing facility savings, reduce water plant operations, maintain 2 full-time personnel and 1 part-time, again, for distribution, sampling, those things. We could put about $418,000 back in towards this project. And again, I have a slide that we'll hit on in a couple of
Okay.
couple minutes. Looking again, here we go. So upfront capacity purchase. Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority, right now, what's been told to us, and again, these things take time and process, that they're offering $2.28 per gallon on the upfront capacity purchase. Well, if we're buying 2 million gallons into it, that cost is $4,561,000. That is the upfront for us to have up to 2 million gallons per day. That's our water in that water plant. Again, estimated for 4.9 miles of 16-inch water line in the Lexington County portion, $2.7 million. We would need a 2 million gallon per day booster pump station located in Lexington County, about $300,000. And here is, right now we average about 1.2 million gallons per day. That's over the course of 365 days, peak and non-peak. 1.2. So if you do that times the 365 days, that gives you about 438 million gallons of water that we utilize as a town. And you take that at what they have provided us based on that amount of water, with other factors that they're taking in their calculation, $1.37 per 1,000 gallons, this would be what it cost us each year to buy the water from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority.
Where'd you get the $1.37?
They provided that number. Okay.
And what would our sale on that amount be?
What's that?
What would our sale on that amount of water? How much revenue would we be getting back on that amount of water?
Do the difference. Well, some you got some in-town customers, some out of town.
Right.
It would be retail at our current water rates.
So the citizens of Batesburg-Leesville would not see a change in their water rates with this?
Again, what I would say is, if this is a project that we want to look further at, I think as a part of what the engineers do in looking at total cost and all that, I would.
And what the mayor would hope would happen is that the water rates for the people of Batesburg-Leesville would actually decrease after this project.
I guess my biggest question is what's going to prevent them from coming back in a couple of years and saying, oh, by the way, we're going to triple charge you now because now we have you guys beat because now we shut down our plant operations. We're not making our own water, so therefore now they have us and they can raise our rates just as high. The same thing with joint municipal. When you're buying full purchase, you're basically putting everything in someone else's hand.
An airtight contract. And now, how tight of a contract they're willing to sign, I don't know. But again, I think if this is something we want to explore, we have to go into the process, better understand everything. You get the attorneys involved, talking contractual matters. And I can tell you we need to make every attempt to close any and all doors or gaps, regardless of who we work with. You close the doors to those abilities and try to protect ourselves in that category. I know Saluda CPW, their contract call with Newberry calls for a 2% inflation increase each year. It's known, it's just done, but that's what they worked out with regards to their contract. Am I right, Tim? It's just a 2% inflation increase on an annual basis.
Under this plan, would we still be selling water and to whom?
We would still be selling to our customer base. And
I mean, outside of Batesburg-Leesville, like to other communities, do we?
Rich Spring.
Rich Spring still?
This is taking into account Rich Spring. We're going to talk about Rich Spring in a little while, if you don't mind.
Well, okay, I don't.
We'll talk about them just a little bit. Savings, the $418,200 we pointed out. Tim and I did our best to go through the current water treatment plant budget and look at how would this potentially impact the budget that we currently have for the water treatment plant. Again, an estimated $418,000 is what we feel like we could put back into the budget through cuts in the water treatment. Again, you're going to maintain a couple people who have to monitor and sample the system. But we feel like you could get close to that number back into the budget. Recoup of engineering fees, again, we're going to have to determine that. We're going to have to talk with AECOM and get a better feel for, and again, if we come up with a number on the engineering that we've spent, certainly Saluda County is going to have to agree to that amount because they're the ones saying they would reimburse us those costs. So they'll have to be agreeable to any amount we come up with. I did skip a slide. Project cons, we hit the pros. Somehow I double tapped. Just looking at some cons that we kind of thought were important. No, I skipped by it. We did start right here. No seat at table. Listen, anytime you make a change and you've got to reduce your full-time staff and deliver that news to us, we see that as a con to this, that we may have to let some people go if we go this route.
Will we still need a full-time in-house engineer if we went with this?
I believe we would because we still do a lot of smaller projects that the lines would still be ours and different projects related to our current distribution system. We would still own the distribution system. We would still have wastewater responsibilities.
We still have maintenance of our tanks, maintenance of our lines,
Right.
maintenance of our, okay.
I would say we would still need the engineering assistance and director of utilities. County growth versus production rate long term. You know, one thing in looking at this is looking at Saluda County as a whole. Right now, Saluda County, where Lexington County's got a lot of growth and a lot of growth coming this way. One thing that does concern me is what the growth's doing in Saluda County. That they just don't have quite the growth in that county as what Lexington County's got. And obviously, if they're taking on new debt service and they're expanding their system and they get into this and they start learning their true cost of production, over time, if they don't continue to grow, but the cost of production continues to go up and chemical costs and stuff, how could that possibly impact us? And that's just something that I think we need to take into consideration and look at as a part of this project. Keep in mind, right now, these are all proposed rates. The plant is not up and operational at this point. They're using cost projections. As they start producing, and over the course, we think around maybe the end of the year, they're hoping to fire that plant up later in September. And I don't think start shooting the water out at that point, but start operating it, getting a feel for it. Hopefully by the end of the year, they may know some more of their cost. Limited no ability to pick up new customers along the treated water line. If they're constructing the Saluda County line and we only have that 4.9 miles coming back in, there's not many customers we can pick up along that water.
Well, they're first right anyway in all of Saluda County.
In Lexington County past, where we pick up
So the
line.
4.9 miles that this pipe would go, there's no one new in that.
You may be able to get a couple people. It's not a lot of people though.
Okay.
You referring to them as they? Who were we talking to get these estimates?
So, Saluda County Water, so with Jason Field, general manager, and their current plant engineer.
Do they have the same board that they had previously?
I think they have
It has
added
been
one new person.
Adjusted.
They've added one new person.
One new person.
But overall, I think it's the
Strawberry still
same
Pretty
group.
much the same.
Jerry is still.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
I mean, yes.
All right, so let's
I
jump
meant
now
to
to joint
say,
municipal.
fortunately, yes.
Going with the same format, quick project overview, still to purchase of 2 million gallons of capacity. Same thing about maintaining a couple staff, but for dissolving our operations. Still purchasing wholesale water, and we would need to put, obviously, a treated water line to town. Project scope of work. We have spoke with Joint Municipal, and they have given us basically a preliminary proposal for the full sale. Again, nothing set in stone. But this would be a treated water line installed from Joint Municipal's new water tank at Calks Ferry Road and Highway 1. It would come down Highway 1, and it would tie into our system around the industrial park. There would be a need for booster pump stations and possibly a water storage tank, whether it's elevated or ground storage, somewhere around the industrial park. Joint Municipal has proposed at a full purchase option, buying in on this water line coming down Highway 1 back to B&L. Preliminary discussions, we have not talked amounts, but Gilbert Summit, we've gone and spoke with them. They are interested in buying into this line as well, coming from Calks Ferry back to town. So right now, you'd be looking, there are 3 interested parties in paying into this line, coming out Highway 1. So Joint Municipal has proposed comping, if we go full purchase, 1/3 of the upfront capacity purchase amount, and selling us at a rate of their cost plus 50% per thousand. Clarify this right here. So they're proposing $2.28 per gallon on the upfront capacity purchase. When we talked about, if you look on the comparison sheet, if you want to, side by side with Saluda County Water and Sewer, they were around $2.28 per gallon.
That's 2.
They're at 2 even. So that would be $4 million up front for the capacity purchase. And again, let's full purchase, $2 million, $2. Based on 2 million gallons at $2, again, 4 million, they project a rate of $1.50 per thousand on their wholesale rate. We currently produce water at $1.44 per thousand gallons. Project pros: one treated water transmission main with the possibility of B&L, Joint Municipal, and Gilbert Summit all buying into this line. We do currently have a town representative that serves on the Joint Municipal. Our council elects someone to that. We do have the case, same as Saluda County, capability to purchase additional capacity in the future. We can feel confident about the rates. While they're not set in stone at this point, they are operational in the services that they provide. They know the rates that they can provide right now because they've been in operation. And so we can feel comfortable about the numbers.
But that being said, the emphasis on a airtight contract would be
It would
firmly
be there.
in place.
Absolutely. We would need as airtight of a contract with them as we would with Saluda County Water and Sewer or anyone else that we consider purchasing from.
Thank you.
You know, when we talked about the growth versus production a while ago, one thing we do know is the Joint Municipal system is continuing to grow at a rapid rate. One thing that can do is give you some confidence that their capabilities of keeping rates lower because of the continued growth is there. And so it's one thing that we can keep in mind. The growth can stop at any time. It's not guaranteed. But what we are seeing on the Joint Municipal, and one thing that I know they continue to say, is how many new customers they're constantly taking on through new development. And our service area, West Hampton, I don't know if you're familiar with West Hampton and Highway 1. That's where our service area begins back to town. Certainly that water line coming down Highway 1, we do have the ability with subdivisions off of that area as well as homes along there to pick up some new customers, possibly Little Creek as a potential customer base as well. And I know with the quarry coming in, there's some people that would be interested even short distances off of Highway 1 of getting some water to them. Project cons, we do lose our autonomy in the water production business. We would be leaving behind $2 million that we have invested in a water project. There is nothing from that $2 million that can transfer to this project in any way. Sticking with the reduction of full-time staff, and we would have to go through an entire engineering and designing of and applying for permits for this project. And we did stick some timelines on your sheet here. If you want to reference those real quick, you're looking at survey, design, permit, bidding, and awarding anywhere from 12 to 15 months, and then another 12 to 15 months for construction time. So you could be up to 30 months,
2.5 years.
2.5 years to get everything done with regards to this project.
How far do our water lines go down Highway 1 towards Lexington?
Windmill Road, as far as it goes, the skating rink,
Right.
rubber company.
Right there, Jim
10-inch crosses right there that serves the.
Into the industrial park, right? Yeah.
Same financial setup here. Capacity purchase $4 million. We would have to solicit from an engineering firm what they would charge to engineer, design, and permit to determine what would the line construction cost be. Again, a 2 million gallon per day booster pump station, around 300,000 gallons. Possible storage tank. Again, we would have to. A lot of storage tanks are roughly around $1 million, but we would want to nail that down a lot closer. Estimated water purchasing using the same 1.2, 438 million a year. At $1.50, you're at $657,000 annually on the water purchase. So one thing to keep in mind, while the upfront cost is slightly lower with Joint Municipal based on all the proposed rates, the annual cost is
No, we still have
slightly higher.
some great big unknowns here
You do.
in cost.
You
I mean,
do.
it costs $400,000 to paint that stovepipe tank at Cox Ferry. I mean, just
How much?
about $400,000
$100,000.
to paint that
Paint it?
sucker.
Good Lord.
All right.
I'm in the wrong business.
I am too. So,
The special paint.
guys, we're sticking with the same
Two special paints,
410,000
yeah.
roughly that we can put, we feel like we could possibly put back into the budget for reduced
And it's big.
operations.
It's big.
It's huge.
But they had a prime interior.
Yeah, yep.
Just some miscellaneous. It will take time to draft the PER because of the 2+ years that this project could take. We might need to consider a smaller, lower cost project to buy us a couple years until we can get there. Especially if Ridge Spring wants to continue getting more water with Titan Farms and them. We would also need to ensure our funding for USDA rural development or possibly explore other funding opportunities. Right now, our funding is for lines out to Saluda County and all of that. That it still fits within that scope, phase 1 scope that we've been funded for. USDA has indicated they're open to changing the funding towards different projects. We just got to submit a PER. They've got to review it and make sure it fits before they can keep the funding in place. We do have to get to the table further with joint municipal. Again, if council likes the thought of this project, we got to get joint municipal and Gilbert Summit back to the table and start nailing down what involvement they really want to have in this.
How far do their lines go currently?
Tim, would
Cost
know.
area is.
That's it, right?
Yeah, and then
That's what I thought, but
Gilbert Summit does have some 12-inch lines in the Highway 1 corridor, but 12-inch is not sufficient to get us what we're looking for.
so we'd be a handshake with Gilbert Summit and a handshake with joint municipal. Okay.
All right. This one was thrown out there. I will tell you, this one up front for us is way more challenging to look at. This does involve going to Newberry to purchase water would require a lot of elements.
Before you get there, to Newberry, which Saluda County water and sewer or joint municipal would be, how should I put this, more appealing to keep Rich Spring
As a customer?
as a customer?
We're going to have to get Ridge Spring to the table. Honestly, Mr. Charles, and that's something, again, I'm going to hit on Ridge Spring.
Because they will have the option to go with Saluda County water and sewer.
Right. And that's something, again, at the end of this, I talk about Ridge Spring because they're a huge factor in this entire process.
And our contract with them currently is until,
2053, November 30th, 2053.
but that's only what, up to $1 million a day they have to purchase from.
It's it's
I
555.
don't think there's any limit on what they can get from us.
Yeah, they don't. There's no limit on how much they can get per day, and the minimum is.
We do have a
Yeah,
capacity,
very low.
capacity
Very low.
limit that is actually based on quarters, a year's use. If they go over 48 million, 58 million gallons, there's a little surcharge for that addition, but that's per quarter.
Yeah,
First
but
thing
they
I heard.
could get the minimum according to our their contract with us, and then go to Saluda County and get
Correct.
We don't have, I don't think we have a minimum, do we?
No, I mean, there's not really a minimum. I think it might be 100,000. I'd have to pull. I could get the answer to that. What exactly that minimum is.
Okay.
They go well far beyond their minimum right now.
Okay.
So. All right, from Newberry, again, purchasing $2 million. It's all the same project overview as the other two. Best we've been able to pull together is there would be a treated water line that would have to be installed along 391 at Stony Hill Road and buy directly from the city of Newberry. There would be the need for booster pump stations. The town would have to fund 100% of all costs. We would have to do engineering study to get a better feel on the scope of work and what would be required in running that line. It would require running a line in both Saluda and Newberry counties. So before I get to this next one, I will say this. One of the things that we have been challenged previously on is running any lines in Saluda County that if we don't have their permission, then we're not going to be granted permission to run those lines. And I do think one of the major challenges by this is if we're buying from Newberry, we're going to be hard pressed to get permission if we're not buying from them, Saluda County Water and Sewer. I think we're going to have a hard time getting permission to put the lines in. And there's no way to avoid not going through Saluda County. I do think there's a lot of challenges with this option, but it was an option submitted and didn't want to ignore.
There would be
But it
no,
doesn't seem practical, possible, or advantageous. in
Distance,
any
you're
way,
over
shape, or form.
21, 22
more
miles
attractive
worth of
options,
pipe
aren't
you
they?
have to fund too.
and
Big quality of water.
Oh, you've got water
You'd have to go
quality.
deep.
up
You said
there.
there are more attractive options.
Yes,
Well,
you
I'm talking about the ones we talking about.
Oh,
sure,
Now-
sure, sure.
I can't
Go
I
ahead.
can't even see.
Is there any possible way to get from here to there with existing lines?
With upsells from the other entities along the way. We could
talked-
go tie in
talked
with
to
Saluda
I
CPW.
talked to Saluda CPW, and he said that they have a 12-inch that comes from the Newberry Water Treatment Plant to Saluda. He said we would have to connect on Highway 121 north of Saluda. and
That's a
run that
long
line.
ride.
Boy, it's a long ride. Okay.
Well, and again, we would have to get permission from the
From
Water and
Saluda.
Sewer Authority in the unincorporated Saluda County areas. And if we're not buying from them, I think we're just going to be hard pressed to get
I
that
think it's
permission.
going to be a waste of money to explore
Yeah.
this option.
This one came with more challenges, but it was given as an idea. And
Certainly. Thank you.
And keep going.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
Move on.
I think we're ignoring Newberry option.
Move past it.
I would say.
So now that was your full purchase options that were submitted. Now we're going to move to partial purchase. We're going to stick with really the same concepts and scope of work with Saluda County and Joint Municipal. We're just going to add, Newberry wasn't really a partial option, but Gilbert Summit looking at them as a partial purchase opportunity there. Rather than 2 million, we're looking at buying capacity of 1 million gallons a day. All the rest of that is the same as before. Project scope of work, everything is still the same. They are still willing to fund 100% Saluda County for construction cost, and we pay for B&L. They're still willing to reimburse the engineering and permit fees and all that. They still have their secondary supply. Here's what changes with Saluda County if we go to partial purchase versus full purchase.
Meaning, partial purchase meaning we keep our plant in
We keep-
production and we're
And
just
just-
buying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Supplement.
Defining partial.
Thank
We still
you.
keep operational and just buy what we need per day from them.
Thank you.
They would require us to purchase a capacity amount into their line work. We would fund 100% of that 4.9 miles of B&L Lexington County pipe. They said we'll fund 100% of the construction cost for the Saluda County pipe, but then we are going to have to buy capacity into that line, which means essentially we're going to pay something towards that line.
Right.
And so that option comes into play. If you don't buy all your water from them, you're going to buy partial.
Okay.
Pay partial of the cost
To
on
get
that
a
line
year.
in the Saluda County portion. Yes, sir. So they're still at the $2.28 per gallon on the capacity. So that's $2,280,000 upfront cost. You will see that on the partial. Boy, that gets tough to continue to run together. Partial purchase.
Would there be additional expense on our part for our existing plant and infrastructure to be able to bring that? I mean,
Yes.
in terms of upgrade, that kind of stuff.
To bring finished water in, we would
I
need.
mean, not just to supply the pipes to come in, but I mean, in terms of once we get the water here
There
in
may be a
our
little bit of
plant.
savings recognized by just reducing the operation a little bit based on the additional water available, because we'd probably have a minimum we need to use. So that would dictate our operating hours at our water treatment plant.
But I think
maybe
from a
8, 10,
plant
12 hours a
standpoint.
day instead of 20 hours a day.
We'd have to retreat that water though, do we? I mean, do we?
No, their water's treated. We may have to add ammonia if we decide to stay with chloramines. But if we go with free chlorine, like whatever they send us.
But from our current plan, if we're maintaining that operation, there will be some things that need to be looked at from the upgrading
think.
and fixing up around our current
But it
treatment
comes
plant.
to,
I
and we
would think
discharge
so.
and store that in our current ground storage tanks at the water treatment plant. And that ammonia could be added at the plant, so it wouldn't be really an additional cost, it'd just be, we'd have to make sure we had a feed point and some monitoring.
Okay. All right. You'll see a little fluctuation in the range. Obviously, if we're not buying as much water, that cost per thousand will climb up some. They're saying their top end cost on the per thousand is $1.55 per thousand. That is what we have used for the sake of this is $1.55.
That's still a projected number since they're not up and running.
Still a projected number at this point. We have not received that capacity. One of the things I've requested is if we've got to buy capacity ends and lines in Saluda County, what amount are we going to have to pay towards that? So I'm still waiting to get that number from them. Some pros, a lot of these are similar as the full purchase. As a matter of fact, all of them are exactly the same. On the cons, the only thing that's been added here was,
The second one there.
yeah, balance between maintaining, we would have to maintain our full staff versus being able to eliminate some staff with the full purchase option. So now you're buying water and you're not really cutting.
We're not cutting no expenses on our side.
You're not really cutting any expenses in
None.
your system.
We're actually adding to.
Right. So there's a breakdown. Your top, this one is reduced. That's the same. Your booster station's the same. Your water purchase expense, we used a 750,000 gallon per day amount for between Joint Municipal and Saluda County, just to stick with the same comparison. At $1.55, and that's what we would project roughly as a annual cost to purchase water.
Go back to the pros one more time. Okay.
Good.
All right.
All right. So partial purchase of water from Joint Municipal Water and Sewer. Everything same on the front page as Saluda County Water and Sewer. Scope of work. Again, it would be a treated water line that came down Cox Ferry along Highway 1, or Cox Ferry down Highway 1. Ignore the second one. Obviously got bogged down in a bunch of slides. That is different. Joint Municipal, basically what they've told us from the beginning is if you're only going to do a partial purchase, we're not going to contribute towards the lines down Highway 1 on what they presented to us. So that would really be us and Gilbert Summit. I apologize. I did do copy and paste when I moved it from full purchase to partial, and all these started blurring together. So that's not really the case there. So we would, between us and Gilbert Summit, we would have to work on how we wanted to divide up a shared cost on that water line. Joint Municipal saying full purchase, yeah, we'll buy in. Partial purchase, no. That's between y'all and Gilbert Summit. I put it there, but I left that. So this has changed. If you recall, it was a $2 per gallon on the full purchase upfront capacity. Joint Municipal is saying we are more at $3 on the upfront capacity purchase based on 1 million gallons per day, so that's 3 million. The cost per thousand, they've stuck with the same $1.50. We produce $1.44. That certainly never changes in this presentation. So project pros, again, there's still a shared cost with us and Gilbert Summit. However, it doesn't include Joint Municipal. We do have the representative on the board. We can always purchase additional capacity in the future. We can still feel confident in their rates remaining consistent. And again, the growth in the county, rates in the county and what they're seeing, keeping those costs low. Some cons, debt service would be higher than full purchase due to Joint Municipal not playing a part into the infrastructure. We would be leaving behind the $2 billion that we've spent at this point, and it would take time to to design, engineer. You're looking at your timeline's not going to change. Infrastructure's infrastructure. Nothing's going to change between full or partial as far as the infrastructure goes. It's the same. So your timeline would still probably be along the 30 months ballparking timeline. And then we would have to balance between maintaining full-time staff and the purchase of the additional water. And we got the to be determined. We would need to work with an engineer to try and nail down further the cost for construction and design and engineering and all of that. Again, we've got to the cost line construction. That's also going to be dependent upon if Gilbert Summit wants to work with us on shared cost on that line. Water purchase expense. It's the same $1.50. We just changed it to the same 750,000 gallons per day and 410,625 annually. And you can see the side-by-side comparison between any of those numbers on your partial purchase sheet that you have in front of you. Partial purchase of water from Gilbert Summit Rural Water District. I'm talking with Tim. Tim has kind of looked at this from his perspective, from a scope of work. We could construct a booster pump station, 5.9 miles of 8-inch water line that ties in Orem Adams Road and Windmill Road, or to Windmill Road, and we are currently on Windmill Road where we could tie into our existing
That's our
line.
system to supply
Right.
from Gilbert Summit's connected.
Right now on Windmill Road, if you're familiar, we go around the curve up to it's
Ridge Road.
Ridge Road, all the way up Ridge Road.
And then get to 378, and then we go
No, where we currently end on Windmill.
down there past Horn Adams Road. Once we get to Horn Adams, we turn right on Windmill.
So we're out that way. We would just tie in off the Gilbert system that's out there on 5.9 miles of pipe. Purchase daily need. Here's where there's a difference in what you'll see between the joint municipal and Saluda County water and sewer options and Gilbert Summit. And talking with them right now, they're comfortable with up to $500,000 a day. Not really much more than that. So we couldn't do them at the 750. So we could purchase a daily need up to 5 million gallons per day. Guys, the main time of the year that we really need to purchase is our peak season. Wintertime, we don't have a big need to be purchasing water from people. So when we looked at this, we looked at $500,000 per day, and we only took 6 months into account. No previous capacity purchase. Yeah, we buy water from Gilbert Summit now for our system too out there at Harbor Watch. When we did not pay a capacity last time we wanted to buy water from them, we wouldn't anticipate it, but we cannot say that they're not going to charge us a capacity up front to buy in. But last time they didn't charge us, and if we're only going to be buying what we need per day, there may be a chance we don't have to pay the upfront capacity from them. That's discussions we have to have with them. We would have to have engineering study to determine, is that the best route? What are the best line sizes? Like I said, Tim's giving it his best shot right now, but certainly engineering is going to need to confirm what's best for us moving forward if this is the route we want to look at. This could service needed waters for some years with some growth until if we needed a little extra time to iron and take some time to make sure we're doing our due diligence. This could assist us for a little while. And we do have to negotiate and work with Gilbert Summit regarding this and see confirm their interest in it and capabilities and what we need to do both short and potentially long term. I'm sorry, excuse me a second. New raw water sources. Right now, I was telling the mayor a while ago, we don't have these laid side by side. These are all very independent of each other, unique in their scope of work, and it's really hard to show them side by side. But if there's a way we can try and get them on one piece of paper for comparison purposes, we will try to do that to the best of our ability. Continue the current path we've been on in getting raw water from Lake Murray back to Batesburg-Leesville. We have spoken with y'all about the Abel's Mill Pond potential and his willingness to let us use his pond for some additional water. Establish a new reservoir near the existing Brody pump station down at the end of Brody Mill, 2 Notch, and explore new groundwater wells around the area and the potential of using them. So raw water from the lake, I think we're all very familiar with this project for the most part, and we won't get into the nuts and bolts detail of this. Just as a reminder, it was to put an intake station on the waterfront property we have, bringing that raw water back to our 42-acre plant site, proposed future plant site, to a couple reservoirs that are constructed here, a booster pump station that boosted through 16-inch raw water mains back to Batesburg-Leesville, back to our existing plant. Using the same path as we've been discussing with Saluda County Water and Sewer.
That enables our encroachment across their area that they didn't allow, or that?
I'll get to some cons in just a second.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to keep running.
You'll hear about that in a minute.
You want a cup of coffee, Jim?
I need a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Some pros to this. Pretty much we could begin this project right away because we're engineered, designed, permitted, easements are obtained. Everything's been engineered with regards to this project. It's just kind of sitting there. But quickly, we'll just go ahead and jump to the cons and remind that we've been denied by the County of Saluda for that lookout point encroachment permit.
But we do have an adjustment on the Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority Board that could affect that permitting process.
And I think there's a couple people that aren't rerunning on the Saluda County Council.
And that will change in November.
We could potentially look at reapplying for that encroachment permit should y'all want to do that. So, as it stands now, we would likely be challenged. Even if we were awarded an encroachment permit, we could likely be challenged on the construction of the water lines in unincorporated Saluda County. The cost of this project would use that full allotment of $620,381 we have a year going in reserve based on the $13 million project. It would use the full allotment of money that we're setting aside right now to bring raw water back.
And go back to the pros again.
That is pros.
So all that engineering, design, permit, or easement, property purchases are all paid in full, meaning we get back how much, we're recouping how much of our money?
I think we said around 1.5 million.
1.5 million, okay.
Roughly. We would get back and put back in the account.
Okay,
Or take it off the loan, whichever one.
okay.
So. Project costs, the estimated cost again, $13 million for that. Until you bid it, you just don't know for sure. We do have debt service payment established for this. And again, been funded on that. Abel's Mill Pond. So last time we talked to y'all about Abel's Mill, it was, hey, here's an idea. What we've done is been able to look at this a little bit deeper in what would be needed. And right now, install a 700-gallon-a-minute simplex pump with remote monitoring at the site to actually draw the water out of that pond. That would do 1 million gallons a day, right, Tim? Is what that pump would be able to do.
700 gallons a minute.
Okay. Installation of the screened intake and bringing close to a mile of 8-inch ductile iron pipe from the pond and tying it not into the Brody Mill pump station that's over there, but actually tying it in to the 14-inch raw water main that's on 2 Notch Road. If you recall, we have the existing Brody Mill pump station out there with a 14-inch main that brings it back to our current town pond reservoir. This pipe would go and be tied into that existing raw water main that we have out there at Brody Mill and 2 Notch.
And can those two pumps be run simultaneously?
No, sir. So either Brody Mill Creek, just to clarify this, If we're running Abel's Mill pump station, that would be pumping and forcing water into 14-inch main. We could not run the Brody Mill or the Brody pump station at the same time as Abel's Mill. So we would have to operate one or the other.
That's because the pump flows don't match.
Right.
The Brody pump stations are 2 MGD design capacity. This is only 1 MGD. And again, the 1 MGD was decided on because of some available funding, we think. But it could be bid as an alternate for 2, if a project would come to fruition.
Okay.
And this would provide up to an additional 1 million gallons per day of water supply. Not capacity, but up to 1 million.
Explain that.
Tim
It'd
explains
be
this way better
supplemental.
now.
Let's say we got to a drought condition and the water wasn't available on our pumps at Brody. We could cut that one on, get 1 million gallons a day, which would probably take care of. We'd be in some drought restrictions probably at that time if it got that bad. So we'd probably take care of our supply based on our restrictions and our use.
The example I would give is right now,
Probably a
the
bare
Brody
minimum.
Mill
That'd
pump
be a bare
station, you got the Brody Mill pond. It's overflowing the dam. So as that water overflows, we draw that water out, and we send it back to our town pond reservoir. When drought starts to kick in and we go long periods without rain, the Brody Mill pond will stop overflowing the water. And at that point, we don't have water to draw out as a backup source of water. That's where we could go and cut on the Abel's Mill pump and actually start pumping that water back, to which we've actually got a screen in the water and we're inside that pond versus relying on overflow.
Either of those sources go to our reservoir, not our plant.
So these are just this is a short-term, this is not a long-term fix for our water problems in our, okay.
Right. Now, as a project pro, we did speak with DHEC. They came out and they did evaluate the pond, and this could likely take away the consent order on the town.
What does that mean, could likely?
That pond has enough water, and it being established as a additional source of water for the town, they feel that pond has enough water.
Who's they?
DHEC. They came out and looked at the pond.
Could likely gives me heartburn.
Well, here's the thing. They will not provide us with how much water we need per day to actually end the consent order. They just said you need additional source of raw water. So they won't tell us how much water we do need. And so we asked them to come out and evaluate the pond. Now, with that said, just because the consent order goes away does not mean that there's any confidence in this being a long-term fix. It's simply a point to point out that this could likely end the consent order, but in no way, shape, or form would I recommend that this be a stopping point in any considerations of future water for the town. We would still need to look at long-term options.
Okay.
It is a cheaper cost project that can be explored to buy that time to further evaluate and get through any longer term projects that we may select to go with. This is because we are already out there. This would be a quicker turnaround on construction time. From a engineering standpoint, we're not looking at quite as much engineering because you're dealing with a shorter length of line. You know what size pump you need. This is something we could get moving fast at not a very expensive cost. The pond owner is agreeable to let us, now obviously we got to get our lease together with him and get agreeable on the lease agreement, but he is willing to let us use his pond because he understands the circumstances we're in. There is the possibility of grant and loan forgiveness money towards this project because it is a consent order item. We may have access to that, and that's something we're looking at further. Some cons, again, anytime you enter a lease agreement and we become reliant upon the use of his pond, there's no guarantee that property owner would not want to sell his property or end that lease agreement that could put it to an end. So
Again, it comes down to contract.
Again, it comes down to contract
Okay.
and lease and how you write that and getting them agreeable. Should the town elect to purchase all of our water from another entity, some of this investment could be lost
Okay.
if we go to full purchase. Financial, we have recently worked with an engineer to just do a study of this, not a in-depth that we got to pay money for a study, but a good look at this. We're looking at a $795,000 project. Again, there is a possibility of a loan forgiveness that we're exploring that could eliminate $550,000 of that cost and leave us with $245,000. So no guarantee, but we are exploring and looking.
That number seems higher than what we had talked about when we were kind of looking at this a couple months back. It was around 600,000. What's the difference?
We had a different engineer look at it,
Yeah.
and he had some concerns about some rock construction in the area,
Okay.
and he wanted to change the intake and the pump support system along with probably put some kind of aesthetically pleasing enclosure around it. Last
Okay.
time it was just pump skids sitting on concrete.
And this number does nothing with our current booster station, right?
No.
No.
No,
It doesn't
okay.
include road.
This is okay.
You talking about Brody Pump Station?
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about that in a moment.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Establishing a new reservoir, this was something that was brought up by council, and it's exploring options out there around that Brody Pump Station, exploring whether or not there's an option to construct a new reservoir of some type out in that area. This would require purchase of land to construct it, and we would have to certainly talk with property owners around that area and find anyone willing to sell land for a potential reservoir site. This would be a more challenging, I will say, probably a more challenging project to take on. But there's a lot you're going to have to look to determine what size reservoir do you need, what is the catchment area, basin area. Are you in the same catchment basin area as the Brody Mill Creek Pond that you're already drawing off of, and the Abel's Mill, which are a part of a lot of the same basin? And if you're in the same basin, what impact is that going to have, if any? The location, what infrastructure needs, and what is the long-term sustainability of a new reservoir out there? We do need to upgrade. We do need to make upgrades to that Brody pump station. If we're going to look at a new reservoir out there, we're going to have to look at an upgrade to that.
And how many acres is our current reservoir?
12, isn't it?
12, 13.
12 or 13? So we would need to at least have that much, I'm assuming. Dig out a pretty big.
It depends on
It
the
depends.
workflow conditions.
Right.
You know, that would be established in upstream catchments that would have to be supplied first. And just all the above kind of say.
Well, and
have to find out what's available big enough. I would think probably 15 acres would be probably.
Well, and if you build it,
15 would be
south of
sufficient.
Brody Mill, if Brody Mill's no longer overflowing, are you being fed?
It depends on where the land, how much excavation has to be done from the pool.
That would be-
Now, I'm sure we have to look at county restrictions on building such a thing after being a part of.
Would probably be.
Conversations of
it'll
the
probably be
quarry.
Permitted by DHEC.
How do wetlands come into play on reservoirs? I don't know the
What's
answer.
that?
Wetlands, do they come into play on
Yeah,
reservoirs?
probably.
would imagine.
Depends. You'd have to have an evaluation.
Everything, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's fine.
Is that your?
Silence my personal phone.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
All right, where was I? Oh, yeah, we would need to get an engineering firm to further look at a lot of factors that would be involved in this. Exploring new groundwater wells, just some thoughts. There really wasn't a lot that we could offer on this other than we would need to hire an engineering firm to come out and take the time to explore what opportunities there are for groundwater wells. As much as anything, what's the water quality? What's the water quantity? The long-term sustainability of those groundwater wells?
Weren't we already advised that water wells were not necessarily a great option because of the risk? I believe the radon risk
Well,
by the
yes.
engineers, they
And
said that the
that
radon.
being said, Gilbert Summit Rural Water, that's what they do. They have radiant and they treat it.
Filter systems.
And they also they have one well that is closer to I-20 that is clear, and they blend with that one.
Actually, they've got two.
Two out,
They've
okay.
shown-
Thank
they've
you,
shown
Tim.
some radium. And one's being treated, one's not. And then they're blending.
They're blending.
Still below, yeah, but
Right.
still. I mean, in fact,
Those exist.
Leesville had a groundwater system years ago. And
Right.
it was abandoned because of the radium.
But yeah, you're right.
I mean, I just want to make sure that we're,
And I think that comes into play in
We're probably talking the I-20
even,
corridor, because when you get back into those recharge areas down there for the aquifers, I mean, up here, probably a deep well like that supply would be a large diameter, it could probably be a rock well, that's where the radium's coming from. So more than likely, you'd have to go south and try to get to some place a little bit more able to, and there'll be test wells involved to find out, so you can guarantee that,
we still have to.
how much
still have to
you're
find
getting and,
yeah, the
okay.
effective
The
yield
water
of
lines
any
and-
new construction.
to the expense doing test
But-
wells and stuff.
You're going to be hit or miss on your radon and radium. Some areas are going to be
It may
good,
not be
some
there
areas
now,
are
but
going
it
to be
might be there
bad.
in 50 years.
Again, someone's going to have to come out and explore in the area, test it, and look at all the stuff they look at. It. I'm not
Well,
pretending
they
to
monitor
know.
all the groundwater in the state, and they try to look at those plumes and see how it's traveled and migrates when it shows up. So, again, an engineering study would definitely
Right.
require.
All right. Improvements to, thank you, sir, I appreciate that. Improvements to existing facilities, again, I don't think we can look at any of these as fixes. They're certainly not things that are going in our consent order for the town.
Mr. Luckadoo, is this our last section of
Yes, sir.
stuff? Okay, thank you.
Do we want to take a quick break?
No, I think our pregnant person has taken her break, but
I couldn't help it.
And the non-pregnant one did.
Did you
Yeah, it was
need something?
Successful non-pregnant.
all right, all right.
Anybody need a quick recess or keep
We're
flowing?
good.
Okay.
Keep going, thank
All
you.
right.
I can walk around.
All right, we could look at, again, just some things we can look at doing while we explore the bigger, longer term options. We could dredge approximately 4.7 acres, 3 feet deep, 3 feet worth of dredging that could give us approximately 4 million gallons of additional storage in the current town pond reservoir that we have. Now, just to put this into a perspective, 4.5 million gallons of additional storage in our town pond reservoir will get us about 3 days.
Okay.
So about 3 days. If we're 100% drawing off of our pond, but again, if we have the Brody pump station operating, we're not going to be drawing everything off of that. So this could assist as a part of the overall package of things. We did go out and ask someone to quote this and take a look at it, around $175,000 to do the 4.7 acres, about 3 feet worth of dredging. We would need to work with the neighboring property owner for temporary easement. You've got to have somewhere to put the stuff that you're drawing out. So we would need a place to offset it, to let it de-liquefy and all the liquid get out and harden to be hauled off.
So the approximate cost, does that include the hauling off or no?
Yeah, I think that was the turnkey,
Yeah. What it
4.7
doesn't-
acres.
What it doesn't include is access to the property, and for how long it would have to be, depends on how you dewater it. Either
Okay.
you mechanically dewater, or you put it and let it just drain by gravity, so it would be a time
Right.
issue there.
Just to clarify, this would not help us with our consent order. Rebuilding the suction screens at our current town pond reservoir, again, just a quick temporary thing we could look at. We don't have the cost on this, but our current screen has 3 suction pipes, one of which in this part of the year, we start seeing the top one fairly often.
See it now.
We can see it now. We need some rain. But there are 2 more suction screens that are down below it. One of the things Tim and I have tossed around is just trying to get something done to help us out is you could look at changing the screen and doing one bigger screen deeper, lower down. There is some room for us to go down on that pipe. But like Tim said, there's some mechanical factors you have to take into account, things that I don't understand that he does. I let if you want to explain it.
It's a declining head thing. You've got to have suction head on the pump for them to be able to pick up and move that water. And as you lower the suction side of that,
The harder it is to
it's
pull it
harder
out of
to
there.
pick it up and move it. So
Right.
it might be a diminishing returns, maybe instead of 2 million gallon capacity, maybe be $1.25 million.
Right.
Depends on how the numbers crunch.
But it's one of those things, and one of the things that I said is if you're going to do this, you really need to look at doing this in conjunction with dredging, lowering your holding capacity, but also redoing your screens to be able to maximize. I think it's more effective if done with dredging. Brody pump station that we've been talking about. Again, just as a reminder, overflow off of the Brody Mill Pond. This is grabbing that water and sending it back to our current reservoir. Our pumps are from 1963, if I remember correctly off the top of my head.
They've been rebuilt.
Right, they've
Replaced
been
once,
rebuilt.
but rebuilt many times.
A number of times. This pump station is just getting very old and worn. The electrical panels, the controls, all of that is very old in here. We need some remote monitoring capabilities.
Do we have any metering on that at all?
No. We have no ability to know what's going. We know when we know when it's cut on and off. But we can't tell you what it's
down there.
doing.
We have no remote capability whatsoever.
Right.
We just can't tell you how it's operating.
This time of year, that's the first thing the staff does is check on the Brody Station and the raw water reservoir.
And again, there may be an opportunity. We've been talking, and there may be an opportunity for some grant funds to help us do some updating and improvements to this. And that's certainly something. If that opportunity comes, we want to let y'all know about and discuss with you. So we're exploring that right now. Moving on, we've kind of hit the list of projects at this point that were submitted that are out there. We wanted to just run through some different thoughts with you that we think are important for you to know. We currently have $26 million in total funding allocated to the town by USDA Rural Development. The reality is $13 million we have the money setting there to be able to make a payment on. So while we're funded $26 million, we have debt service capability of $13 million right now with that $620,000.
And is that 26 million dependent upon the type of project?
Again, right now that's funding allocated for phase 1 and 2 of the project that we've had.
If that project were to be a different project, would that funding still apply? Would that?
USDA Rural Development has indicated to us we could change the scope of our project. They will review it, and in all likelihood, if it makes sense, they will keep our funding in place. So, I can't tell you with 100% confidence that USDA would, but I can tell you in talking with them, they know our DHEC consent order. They're not looking to take our funding. They will certainly give full consideration to letting us keep our funding in place. But with that said, there is the state revolving fund, and I think it's key to point out to you guys, the reason we started with USDA Rural Development as the funding source for this project were the grant opportunities that they offered in getting funding from USDA. The town did not receive grant opportunities. They don't offer grant opportunities in conjunction with their loans anymore. We were one of the first hit by that change. And now, not having the option for grants, we can look at the state revolving loan fund or other options for funding on any projects that we choose. That's just why we went with USDA to begin with, were the grant opportunities. Let's talk about Ridge Spring. Ridge Spring is what I would say a huge part of everything that we're talking about and doing right now. Just as we have an opportunity to work with either Georgia Municipal or Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority, Ridge Spring has the opportunity to go out and purchase water from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority. Now, with that said, if they elect to contract with Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority, in all likelihood, that would eliminate our consent order for the town. They are 35% of our daily water use. That could potentially We get 35% of our water each day back. That really changes a lot of things if they sign on with the Water and Sewer Authority. Now, does that mean we don't still need to continue to look for additional sources and stuff? Yeah, I think we would be not smart to not continue to look at what options are out there, but it does eliminate our ability to take on massive, major projects.
So our current contract with Ridge Spring does not prevent them from searching for another source.
If we cannot provide them enough, they can get, they're going to have to.
Are we at risk?
And even if we can
Absolutely.
provide them enough, they can still.
They still have a way out.
it.
Is there a, do you know if there's a buyout clause? If they kill our contract, there's no.
They have again, their minimum, and I'll pull the contract and I'll answer this question for y'all, but their minimum is so low, it's non-impactful. I mean, it would be a huge loss in revenue if they take off and go, but it would be a big gain in water back into our system to be used for Batesburg-Leesville. So I think the biggest point that we got to keep, if they want to remain a customer of B&L and that's what they elect to want to do, then absolutely we've got to be out here exploring these options, seeing what we want to do moving forward. However, if they're going to go, and we need to know if they want to go to Saluda County Water and Sewer and buy their water, well, that changes the way we can look at this whole project. And I can tell you, the loss in their revenue from them buying their water from Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority, we're not going to be able to take on a major, more expensive long-term project. It's going to be a big hit to the amount of revenue that we're bringing in. They're a large chunk of the revenue. So we've really got to sit down with Ridge Spring, and they need to let us know. I think before we can't make a final decision on a project until we know what they decide they want to do.
When is that likely to take place?
We've got to sit down and start having some.
Well, I mean, I've
serious
had
talks.
lunch with Mayor Asbel a couple of times, I mean, they're not, her concern is, I don't want to run out of water. I've got these great big companies out here pulling on us hard. They bought more water from us, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but she had indicated they bought more water from us in the month of May than they have ever purchased from the town of Batesburg-Leesville.
But apparently they also have a little bit of an issue dealing with Saluda Water and Sewer as well. Kind of
I think there's some
what we
history.
have. Huh?
I think there's some history.
There is.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
As of conversation today, I know that.
Yeah.
So just so you know, we've got to be at so right now we're at the table with Ridge Spring, and need to continue talking to Ridge Spring and trying to encourage them to decide what they want to do, because that really greatly impacts what we can or choose to do. So that needs to be taking place. But in the process of all this, we need to be talking with Joint Municipal, continue talks with Saluda County Water and Sewer, talks with Gilbert Summit, Rural Water. There's a lot of talking that's really going to be taking place depending on what you guys decide you'd like to narrow down and look at. Just as a reminder, we have $620,381 annually right now that we can actually apply towards debt service of any project. The 418, if any full purchase options, puts that back in. Just hitting on reiterating a few points. One of the things we got to talk about at some point is the 42 acres we purchased that was going to be a new water treatment plant. I've certainly not put anything on here that says we need to look at building a water plant out there in the future. What do we want to do with this 42 acres? I mean, that's a discussion that I think needs to be happening at this point, just for the sake of all this, is what do we do with it? The raw water intake, the only option that lakefront site, the only option that fits with is bringing raw water from Lake Murray back. So anything, if we decide not to look at that, you've got another piece of property we need to be considering.
At this point, we've done nothing with that property except purchase it. We haven't made any improvements at all. It's still a vacant.
We studied it and that was it.
Okay.
That was it. So these projects and ideas, number one, it's not either or. There's nothing about this stuff from the lower, smaller ones to the larger ones that makes them all inclusive. Any of these can be looked at in conjunction with each other. Just keep that in mind. And
One additional thought that had come up, having coffee with a friend of mine, was the possibility of Saluda County Water and Sewer Authority selling us raw water from their existing intake station, and whether or not that question could be posed to Jason Fell in the near future, just to see if that might be something else that we could throw onto the mix.
so constructing the 16-inch raw water line back and just using their
No intake station for us,
Intake.
but we would have a raw water line back.
Okay,
You know,
yes,
but we would.
Tim, can you make note?
It might-
Reach out to Jason about it?
Satisfy that encroachment.
Yeah, but if they're selling us raw water, that encroachment permit might be an easy
Correct.
thing to then get, because they're getting something out of
Right.
that pipe.
The question that leads to in my mind is how does that affect our water treatment capacity? And what do we need to do as far as upgrades and improvements?
Right, and I think, and that's either way, even if we do.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the
Raw
challenges
earlier.
we would have a hard time with, just on the surface looking at it, now we're going to have the conversation, is what's going to be their willingness to pay for any of the line work in Saluda County, because there's no sales they can pick up on.
Well,
that.
no, I mean, it
It may be fully funded from their whatever meter site we choose for that raw water. It would likely be 100%, but certainly we're going to reach out, ask the question, and see what their willingness is on that option.
But we wouldn't have a pump to maintain down there. Our
Right.
buying in the raw
Right.
would, you know.
The raw water intake was what, 1.2, 1.3 million?
I don't.
Probably we would just, other than building the intake pump station, we would just probably still go with the storage reservoirs on our site, along with that booster pump station and the rest of the line by the time.
Okay.
That's what I would anticipate. So we'd probably start at their facility and then go to our facility.
Well, you know about where the
It may
raw
add-
water
may
enters
add
everything?
1,000, 2,000 feet of pipe to our project, a couple thousand feet of pipe.
Yes, we can reach out. and
But it
ask that
reduces our
question.
pump station intake cost.
Yep. Now, if I remember correctly, the raw water intake was 1.2 to
And then-
1.5 million, I think.
Another thing, and I hate to bring these up, hit these with you, but one thing that I know that Joint Municipal had talked about, I mean, would there be any thought of selling or franchising our system out?
So I could tell you that when we discussed that, the possibility that Joint Municipal just buy out our system and become owners of our system and sell the water, they are certainly open to the idea, but unless this council is actually willing to legitimately consider it, they do not want to go through the legal and financial analysis
To determine if
Right.
They're saying it would take a lot of financial and legal analysis to.
They cozy it up to the
And it
idea,
would
but they
cost
just
a
didn't
lot
want
of
to
money.
put forth the expenditures and time,
Sure.
because they actually put a little blurb at the bottom of
They
the
did.
proposal they submitted about it would detail further discussion.
They're open to discussion.
Absolutely entertaining.
They just don't want to go far without a serious consideration to it. So
Okay.
That's what we had for y'all tonight. Any questions on anything from the presentation or anything? There may be, if you do this, if you think of some questions, if you will email me, I'll be happy to let the others know, rather than getting into a quorum of people in an email communication. If y'all have questions and want to submit them to me, I can certainly put together responses with your question to send out to the group so that everyone knows it was asked.
Is there anything, and I think there may be, but is there anything from this presentation we feel like we can eliminate tonight? Are we looking at saying, here's what we've got, do we
Newberry.
eliminate the Newberry option?
Newberry.
That seems like an excessive
Yeah.
effort and
And
cost.
will you be adding the option of using Saluda County, their outtake from the lake? Will you add that option, the one that Lance mentioned?
We'll have that conversation with Jason One of the challenges I think we're gonna, and this is again me talking about challenges and looking at some of this stuff on the surface. The partial purchase options are going to be challenging because you can't eliminate the full operational maintain.
Right.
And I think-
Crazy about those options.
Yeah, the partial purchase options, I think, are ones that we can probably take off the table.
That sounds like a good
It's all or
idea to me.
nothing.
Yeah.
Because I just,
A lot of money
I just
with
don't
no
know that,
savings.
There's nothing to put back in the pot for the
Right.
infrastructure costs you're gonna have to
Right.
pay to get out there. So,
My question about the joint municipal and the Gilbert Summit one, how much is Gilbert willing to go to with the pipe? It's 11.9 miles to Cox Ferry and Highway 1.
So-
So how far are we going to be responsible from to what point? Because Gilbert, if I'm not correct, they're building a brand-new school off of Highway 1. And no
And a
offense,
couple
but
hundred
that's not
houses.
our responsibility to buy their pipe.
No. So this is part of the reason Gilbert Summit is so interested in talking about a joint municipal.
they're gonna be going to
No.
joint municipal, they're gonna be
They're
going to
gonna
joint
have to. They're
municipal.
gonna have
Yeah,
to.
they're gonna be going
Get it that
yeah.
way.
I
I'm
mean,
just
unless we
wondering, to our
produce
point, are
water
they
and
gonna
sell it,
go
they're gonna contribute
to
to
West
it.
Hampton, or they can go to
They're going there.
Priceville, or they can go to? That's
So
why
this
I'm
is the
wondering, what
discussion we have to
extent?
go further into with them. Right now, what we know is all parties are interested in discussions and interested in a possibility of one pipe that goes from Cox Ferry back to Batesburg-Leesville. We know the interest is there, but we did not want to go in and start going into a bunch of details on the specifics of that unless council wanted us exploring this option. And we didn't want to waste their time nor our time until we know that this was something council was.
Because I mean, you're adding a
I
counting
I like
station.
that as an option.
You're adding a counting station right there at West Hampton
Yeah.
and Highway 1, where you're gonna have
Who's
fire,
gonna service
EMS,
that?
magistrate, and sheriff's department. I'm just.
And plenty of room for
Yeah,
residential
plenty of room
development.
for-
We're not
And other
talking
development.
tomorrow, they're building subdivisions from Lexington going in.
Oh, they're coming.
All this growth.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
Subdivisions.
There's nowhere to go.
That's one
unless-
reason I like that as an option, is because it gives us the capability of capturing a lot of new customers as they push out this way.
Will we be capturing, or is joint municipal capturing?
I guess it depends on where the cutoff is. That'd have to be part of the discussion.
So one of the things joint municipal indicated, just a statement early in their discussion was, we have to talk about the service territories and the ability for potential new customers as part of this. Certainly, if we're 2 million gallons and we're buying all of our water from them to resell back here in town, they are willing to buy more into that because from a long-term standpoint, they're going to be selling a lot more water. And so their willingness goes up. But what they are wanting to have more one-on-one discussions with Gilbert Summit about is potential for service territory and can that be altered any? Because they said the more service territory we could pick up as a part of this potentially, the more we're even willing to contribute.
Joint municipal does not make water.
Right.
Does everyone understand that?
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
They don't make water.
They get it from West Columbia.
Distribute water from West Columbia. Okay.
Yep.
So the
Making sure.
more retail customers they get, the better they like it.
The better they like it, yeah.
In West Columbia,
I mean, they pull out of Lake Murray just like everybody else does. I mean, everybody's
Yeah,
going to
I
this.
know.
Lake Murray's a source for water. That's your source.
Big pond.
It's a big
Ain't gonna be
pond.
many more permits given for Lake Murray down
No.
the road. It's tightening up. And they're gonna hit a cutoff point on FERC permits.
I just see the
You're
benefits
down
coming from there because you got the industrial park right outside of
Mhm.
town.
Right.
You have the new substation for all the public safety.
The
You
growth's
have
gonna
the
be
quarry.
that
You
way.
have
Right.
the school coming on Highway 1. The benefits.
And
I just had some concerns about, I guess, from my standpoint, from Saluda County.
well, I do too.
Because it's
think-
unknown. They don't know what their production rate is. What's to say that it's not $1.75? Like you said, Saluda County is really not growing,
Right.
if you look at it. So
They're
they
shrinking.
know if they're supplying our only water, that could hurt us potentially.
Seems to be the weaker of the options.
I think you've done a great job of giving us a digestible package with all this stuff, though.
I think it's something we definitely need to think about.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
All right, so if what I heard,
I just don't have a full list of sheet that says all of my that I can check off, Theodore. I think
where we all
somebody might have mentioned that on the phone today. Maybe it was me. I don't remember. It's been a long day.
I didn't hear you say it.
Did you? Okay.
I didn't, so.
It's been a long day, I can agree with that one.
okay. There's partial, did I hear something on the partial right now?
Sounded like.
I don't know. I mean, you
I
know.
think partial's really worth it, because you still gotta maintain all your normal
Yeah,
operations.
I think financially it's not, no partial is a viable option.
When you got to put that much money, when you pay to put a pipe in the ground.
All your construction costs is the same, actually
I'd like
more
to
because people
reduce
don't
the
want to give you
water
as much.
rates of the people of Batesburg-Leesville. That would be really nice.
Right, and then you've got to maintain your existing costs you already have on top of the purchase of water. It's going to become more
We're
financially
looking at the
challenging.
joint and Saline County, they stay on the table, so.
I think keep
Sounds like
both
a
those on the
Joint
table. Yeah,
Saluda County,
flush
stay
them
on the
out
table.
further.
What's the thoughts on the Ablesville, Brody pump station?
I don't think those are in the same category to me.
But I'm saying because kind of wait and see what comes back from our submittals.
I mean,
Grant submittal,
SRF.
see what comes
Yep.
back. Sure.
I mean, I like Abel's Mill as a supplementary option. I know it's expensive, but it's a solid water source. I mean, granted, we've got to treat it, but we know it's there. It's a known entity that we're confident we can tap into at what we would assume is a reasonable rate.
Quickly,
Right.
Short term.
short term,
It's short term,
patch,
and it allows us to, if we do go either way, we're
bitter
still
pill
looking at
to swallow.
And
2 years
But
to build.
I think at its face cost, I don't think that this is something that I am comfortable with. With
Only-
grants, and if we can get
Offsetting costs.
offsetting costs,
Yeah.
then I think we've got, some,
is there another option that's less costly than that one that we've explored so far?
just
Is that
the
grant?
dredging is the other expansion of dredging
That
is less
doesn't-
costly, but it doesn't buy us enough.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it buys us anything. I mean, we're
Again,
going to spend.
I don't think
That
you
was
even
our
are
way to
impactful
water
unless you
the
do them two together.
Right, but we're still. I mean, we'd probably still spend $500,000 on that. I would estimate. I mean, just so.
You
That- I mean,
wouldn't
those
spend
are
that
the-
much,
I
But
think-
it would cost a couple hundred.
I mean, you're a couple hundred almost in just the dredging, and I don't know what it takes for the screen upgrades or whatever, but
And does it affect your pump? Do you have to redo your pump just so you do it,
yeah, I don't.
your suction?
That would be a stopgap emergency type.
Right.
On the screens, because like I say, you want no additional source, but
just need-
access to it. I mean, once it gets below that third screen, we don't have access to it.
Right, you're done,
Can I, is it safe for me to assume that we will certainly absolutely keep that one on the table, the one we spent?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you're looking at
Yeah.
3 years going, to, from day one to joint municipal to get that done, So you've got 3 years of stress over water that may or may not be here every summer, while that gets worked out. We're one encroachment permit and a letter of please go ahead, on that raw water. So yeah.
So that one, we just pretty much said if we can get some offsetting funds to help with that, keep that one on the table. I do see a lot of potential challenges with the reservoir because you're going to get into property ownership and
I think that's gonna be the
acquisition,
hardest one out of it.
basin considerations. I mean, anything you do down near the Brody pump station is going to be along the same basin as Abel's Mill and Brody
Right.
Mill, and they're actually downstream.
And at a higher
from the both
cost.
of them. If they don't overflow, then is your new reservoir being fed adequately?
I think they'll.
I don't.
too
I
hard.
think there's personally. I think there's some challenges to that, but it's certainly something we can move forward with exploring if y'all want to.
And we've never thought the new groundwater wells was a viable
I don't think it's
option.
viable.
That's been kind of knocked out, and Charles, maybe you can remember the groundwater wells. That's something that's kind of been looked at in the past. A couple of different times it's been pretty much knocked out, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm fine with nixing that one.
Me too.
and the new reservoir option.
Okay.
So we can focus energies on ones we're more concerned with.
You got both of these right now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Those are all our,
That one,
oh,
the 5-point-something miles, I don't know if it's something y'all want to look at or
I don't think they're gonna have capacity. I just don't see it.
Not long term.
not long-term, no.
With putting pipes in the ground, I mean,
we're better off
Well, when
providing
they
our own raw
when they
water.
tap into joint municipal, then they'll have capacity.
right,
Yeah, and they're doing that.
they will.
Right.
But
Yeah,
our
I-
hope is go share capacity costs so we're not upsell
Right, if,
on the water.
if we go down that road, I like the option of being on the front end of that, so we can negotiate sales areas
Yeah.
up front instead of begging for them later.
All right, so all three parts are, that word I've
Out.
said as many times that I can't even say.
The green screen.
All right, that was what we had presented tonight.
Any other,
That helps us out with narrowing our focus, which was one of our goals.
Right.
What we're gonna probably likely need to do is look at RFP an engineering firm that's willing to look at the two full purchase options, which not as much Saluda County, there would be probably some look in that, but really the joint municipal, and again, we may be able to partner with Gilbert Summit and joint municipal on that study from a cost standpoint. And then, so we'll get back to you guys, we'll circle back around on the ones we're keeping and what our thoughts are for engineer to look further at those. We'll be back to you on that.
okay,
Okay?
any other questions on this? Okay, one little final item before we adjourn. I do have a letter from Mr. Mitchell here. Please accept this letter as notice of my resignation from District 6 Town Council effective this date. I have moved my residence, no longer live within the district in which I served. It's been a pleasure and tremendous honor to work with both of you and our council members for the past 10 months. For the future, my wife and I will continue to own and operate our business in Batesburg-Leesville. Also, our involvement in other civic commitments and our keen interest in the progress of our town does not and will not end with our change of address. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to serve Batesburg-Leesville in this capacity. I'm wishing you and Town Council the best of luck in a future that seems full of promise and progress for our community. If it can ever be of further service, please don't hesitate to call me. So respectfully, Jim Mitchell. And I've received this as I walk through today. And Jim, I just want to thank you for your service. And
It's been my
wish you
pleasure.
the best of luck.
It's been an experience.
in your move. And
Thank you.
I mean, we will miss you. Absolutely.
I'm gonna miss it,
Yeah.
but thank you very
But
much.
please come and watch. I promise to entertain.
We need to make it official.
Do we need to make
Do we
this
need to-
official in any capacity
Can we? Because he's no
to
longer-
accept it? Do we need to, Miss Judy?
Do you want
It'll
them to
go into
vote
the
to
minutes?
accept it?
Well,
We don't even have a quorum because he was no longer.
he's resigned.
Yeah, he's resigned, so we have.
So you no longer have a quorum. It's just going to be. It'll still be put into the record for tonight's meeting.
That's fine.
Well, I think the letter is
Do you
adequate.
want
If I
to
could,
email that out?
yeah, I certainly will. Okay. A
I would
motion
like to get a
to,
copy before you.
We do have a quorum,
but
he's no
he's
longer
just
a member.
resigned.
He just resigned, so he's no longer.
He just resigned.
but
Can he vote himself off?
But I don't think. Huh?
Effective today.
Resignation.
Just now.
Today, now.
Tonight. Right now, in this
We have
meeting,
a quorum until 11:59.
after the meeting.
After the
We
meeting.
got a quorum.
Okay, so we have a quorum, so we can have a motion to accept the,
I so moved.
You can vote on your own resignation.
Thank you very much.
we have a motion by Mr. Prowse to accept the resignation of Jim Mitchell in District 6, and second by Ms. Hallman. All in favor, raise your right hand to accept. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Any discussion? Got it. Great. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. So moved by Mr. Simpkins, seconded by Mr. Prowse. Mr. Simpkins, motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Prowse. All in favor to adjourn, raise your right hand.
I quit.
And we have adjourned.